Somehow often brings about a sense of nostalgia for those things marine, those things aquatic, and the toys that depicted them. Join us again at the little things as we dive under the waves and look at the toys of summer time, the toys of the aquatic world. Well, Shark Week is nearly here, and that means several things. First, we're going to be treated to lots of television shows featuring one of the coolest creatures to have ever lived. Second, it's one of the best ways to celebrate summer. And third, it also means that we're moving into late summer. Anyway, this is a special Shark Week. This is the 35th anniversary of Shark Week. That's right, Shark Week started way back in 1988. Now, how are we going to celebrate this momentous occasion? By looking back at shark toys from years past, especially from the late 1970s and early 1980s. This was a golden time for the shark toy, and really for marine-themed toys altogether, and the reason for this is pretty simple. The film Jaws was released into theaters in 1975. It became one of the first summer blockbusters, and toys, games, and merchandise was bound to follow, and follow it did. Several toy companies got the license to produce shark toys with the Jaws label slapped on it. And as the sequels continued to be produced well into the 1980s, the merchandising opportunities continued to grow. But the official Jaws merchandise was just the tip of the iceberg. And as it has been said many times, any toy company can produce a shark toy, and produce shark toys they did. Shark toys became a mainstay of the late 1970s and early 1980s kids' toy boxes. So let's just jump into the water and look at some of the most famous official Jaws toys and games. And at the top of most people's list is the Jaws game, produced by the toy company Ideal. The game was a shark toy that came with all kinds of pieces of junk and debris molded from solid pieces of plastic. The debris was loaded into the shark's mouth, which was held open by a rubber band mechanism and ready to snap shut. As players took turns removing bits of the debris from the shark's mouth, the weight could shift and trigger the jaws to close. And as beloved as this game is, it seems that it was more of an opportunity to own a great shark toy than play the game itself. But many folk consider this game to be the apex predator of the Jaws-themed toy ocean. In fact, this kind of game would be seen later on with games based on other Jaws ripoff films. This game, based on the Jaws-like film Alligator, is a great example. It was perhaps an arguably better-made toy. And lately I found out that this game has been reissued several times under the Sharky's Diner moniker. It was reissued in the 1990s and again in 2013. But the Ideal game was just the beginning. Imperial Toys would also get the license to produce several official Jaws-themed products. Here we see two different sets of Jaws-themed toy rings. Well, likely it was two different ways to offer the same sets of rings, and I'm not sure why shark-themed bling was even produced, but it is really hard to find an existing example of one of these rings. Interestingly, it does appear that there are modern examples of this type of ring being produced, maybe for modern iterations of Mac the Knife. This is definitely the kind of ring you want to see on someone's hand during a blind date. Now let's take a look at that Jaws water squirter on the right. Press a button and the jaws open and water squirts out. It's like a mix between shark and archerfish. Hear that, film studios? Why haven't we seen that in a monster movie yet? Okay, let's move on to the inflatable shark toys. Here we see two different inflatable shark fins, one to wear and one to let float in the water. I am sure that some kids had big dreams for these, only to be crushed by a mix of shoddy construction and generally aware and even just vaguely cognizant potential victims. But these types of shark toys are still really popular today, though the manufacturing has changed quite a bit. Look, Jimmy, you're not fooling anyone. And that inflatable shark in the middle. It was one of the banes of my very early childhood. Either I was ridiculously rough on toys or this thing was ridiculously tender. And it looks like such a high quality product. Well, needless to say, there aren't many of these still swimming in modern waters. But once again, this species of toy has modern ancestors. Let's hope that kids these days are having more luck than I had in keeping them around for more than 5 minutes. And that leaves us with the man-eater great white shark at the bottom, which we're going to get to a little later. But let's stick to official Jaws toys first. The next shark toys are some of the most popular and most well-known Jaws, or even just shark toys ever created. The rubber sharks produced by the Chemtoy Company. Chemtoy produced this shark toy, which was about a foot long and molded of a relatively hard rubber almost immediately after the film was released. The toy was offered both in large volume display boxes and in individual packages with cardboard backing. This shark toy was very common. But not as common as the next Jaws shark toy to be produced by Chemtoy. This was yet another hollow rubber shark toy to be produced by the same toy company and was relatively the same size as that first shark toy I showed, but this one was created of a softer rubber. It seems that this toy was offered in the same way as the other Chemtoy rubber shark, but this one was usually shown attached to its own cardboard back. And this shark toy would go on to become one of the most widely offered shark toys for the next several decades. After freeing itself of the net of the Jaws license, this shark toy would go on to swim throughout the waters of many different toy aisles. It could be found in department stores, box stores, grocery stores, five and dime stores, zoo and museum gift shops, and the gift shops of tourist attractions throughout the United States. But as it was said before, any toy company could produce a shark toy, and so many toy companies did just that. This style of rubber shark toy became incredibly prolific during this time period, and tons of variations were found everywhere. I touched on this briefly in my video on the Marks Undersea Adventure playset that came with a small version of one of these hollow rubber shark toys. Usually the shark toys were just hollow rubber, but sometimes they came with a built-in squeaker to make a squeaky sound when squeezed. Just the kind of sound you would think of a shark making. This type of shark toy was the inspiration for the toy shark in the Toy Story films. This underlines how prolific this type of toy shark was at that time. And that brings us back to the man-eater shark from Imperial. It wasn't an official Jaws toy, but it was sure included with the other official Jaws-themed products. Now this was a quality piece of shark-shaped rubber. Another great example of hollow rubber shark toys from this time period. It was constructed of a very soft rubber, but it was found everywhere. And the explosion of Jaws and Jaws-derived rubber shark toys led to other hollow rubber sea creatures being produced. They were all manufactured in the same vein, and let's say that scientific accuracy was not the goal here, but they gave a lot of different options for kids who were into marine and aquatic life-themed toys. And these toys were also offered at many of the same stores and gift shops that the hollow rubber shark toys were sold at. Man, they all looked so fierce and predatory. And they weren't done yet. Many toy companies would offer more toys to take advantage of the Jaws-inspired shark craze of the time. This guy is one of the favorite knockoff toys offered. The Shark toy by Ben Cooper. Yep, the same Ben Cooper that produced all those great rubber monster and superhero jigglers and Halloween costumes. This soft, jiggly rubber shark can complete with a shark attack victim. Or maybe he's the heroic shark hunter. You don't know. Don't judge him. And speaking of intrepid shark hunters, in 1981 Fisher-Price released the Sea Shark Adventure People marine-themed toy playset. I talked about this in my video on Fisher-Price Adventure People sea-themed toys. I think they were definitely trying to tap into a certain theme and look here. This set was likely inspired by Jaws, and there was a good chance that they were trying to ride the shark toy wave here.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
But that doesn't mean that this was not a quality toy. In fact, it very much was a great playset, and the rubber shark offered with this is one of the best constructed and most accurate of all shark toys available at that time. I particularly appreciated that it was not molded in mid-attack with an open mouth filled with gnashing teeth, like most shark toys. This guy was just chilling and swimming. But the next toy playset was one of the greatest and most interesting that seemed to try to tap into that Jaws toy craze, but also offered just a great shark toy. The Migo Aquaman vs. the Great White Shark toy set. This set came with an Aquaman figure from the world's greatest superhero line packaged with a motorized Great White Shark toy. A very white Great White Shark toy. It might have been an albino or some kind of subspecies variation. Or maybe it was some kind of robo-shark.
Sharks with frickin' laser beams attached to their heads.
I believe that Fisher-Price was giving an homage to this toy set when they offered the Aquaman and Robo-Shark in their Imaginext toy line around 2015. Brick Mantooth over at Plaid Stallions has a great video on the original Migo toy, and I highly recommend checking that one out. And while Jaws gave sharks a pretty bad rap, the film did lead to a popular interest in shark and sea creatures in general. Just as with the toys, some of the associated media tried to give a scientific spin to the Jaws-themed merchandise. One of my favorite examples of this is this book. This Jaws 2 coloring book was one of my favorites as a kid and mostly just contained colorable images of sea creatures and other marine life. But of course there was a ton of books associated with the Jaws films that were created with kids in mind. This stuff goes on, and it is a subject that really should be tackled in a video all its own. And to be fair, not all shark toys from this time period were based on or in any way related to the Jaws film franchise. Tomi, so well known for the wind-up toys at that time, created these cartoony little guys in the early 1980s. They were owned by many a kid and saw play in many bathtubs and pools across the country. And one last species of shark toy needs to be mentioned. The vintage Plush Shark toy. These creatures are a mainstay of aquatic and marine life theme parks and zoos. Especially those from the SeaWorld theme parks, usually associated with the SeaWorld Park Shark Encounter attraction. And these don't get a pass on the connection with Jaws merchandise theming either. Let's not forget that in a simply brilliant marketing move, the film Jaws 3 takes place supposedly at SeaWorld in Orlando, Florida, where the giant man-eating shark infiltrates the sea park and wreaks havoc. Of course, the park depicted in the movie is nothing like the landlocked SeaWorld in Orlando, and the shark encounter looks nothing like the facility in the film, but that didn't stop them from making the connection, the film, and some great plush sharks, variants of which are still offered at SeaWorld today. Alright, the connection is tenuous at best, and I just really wanted to bring in the Jaws 3 SeaWorld connection. But even to today, a trip to SeaWorld or really any major aquarium will still end with the purchasing of a plush shark for many children, and they were a mainstay in the early 1980s. Simply cinematically brilliant. attempting to blend the fear of these giant aquatic predators with an interest that would hopefully lead to an understanding was one of the reasons Shark Week was started. It's a week to celebrate, enjoy, and hopefully learn about these magnificent creatures, as well as celebrate one of summer's biggest and best icons. And here, in modern times, shark-themed toys are everywhere. Some scientific, some monstrous, and some that try to blend the two together. This has gone beyond fad or craze and is just a way of life, especially in the summertime. The Discovery Channel itself now offers shark-themed toys, which hit the shelves around this time each year. Back in 2018, there was a great rollout of shark-themed toys for Shark Week's 30th anniversary. It was a great time to be into sharks. Well, our shark cage is nearly broken to pieces, and it could be a perilous swim back to the boat, so we better get started. I hope to continue our deep dive into these marine-themed toys in future episodes, so hop on board, and let's spend what's left of summer remembering the little things that helped us to hesitate just a little when jumping into those deep waters. Please hit the like button and subscribe to stay in touch with future content.